Well, the National Assembly has passed the Electoral Amendment Bill with 232 votes in favor of the bill. Those in support were the ANC, EFF, PAC, Al-Jamaah and the NFP. The DA, ACDP, IFP, EFF+, and COPE voted against the bill in its current form. The Good Party and the AIC abstained. Now, the bill had to go for a vote after the DA called for a division. The bill seeks to give independent candidates the right to participate in the national and provincial elections. The Constitutional Court declared the Electoral Act unconstitutional in June of 2020, as it required that adult citizens may only be elected to the National Assembly and provincial legislatures through their membership of political parties. Now, let's discuss this further. We're now joined via Zoom by Dr. Michael Lewis. He's the chairperson of the Independent Candidate Association. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Doctor. Now, talk to us about the possible implications of this bill, what it seeks to do, and do you get the sense that even the people who voted for the bill understand what it actually means?
Well, look, the big thing is it is a complicated bill, and I'm not surprised that most people don't understand because of its complexity. And there's different angles to it. There's one angle that says that this is more than just an administrative issue. It's more a human rights issue. But from the Independent Candidate Association's point of view, to us, this remains a constitutional issue. And we need to work within the frameworks of the Constitution. And that's why in 2017 already, I personally brought this issue to the Court because I believed that there was impropriety and that it didn't pass constitutional muster. So it's very complex, but definitely I am of the opinion that this bill does not comply constitutionally. And that's why we have got no alternative but to fight it back in the Constitutional Court.
In fact, I want to discuss that a little bit more. So would you say then that this bill was reactionary in a sense? As we know, of course, that the bill was only drafted following that Constitutional Court ruling in, the New Nation Movement, NPC, and others versus President of the Republic and others, declaring that the current party list system unconstitutional in that it did not, as you say, allow individuals or independent candidates to stand for election at a national or provincial level. So I want us to delve a little bit deeper in terms of what it means now for those independent candidates then.
Let me just take you back, and I'm going to answer you if you don't mind. But the big thing is I heard the minister yesterday saying they didn't have any alternative but to accept the majority report of his advisory committee, which is not the truth. Because in 2018 already, we drafted a private member's motion by virtue of Honourable Member Lakota that we lodged a full bill that was compliant and certified by the parliamentary advisors that it's constitutionally compliant. So to save the minister this timing where only after the judgment, a year after, he started submitting a bill. So when he comes and said there wasn't other time to be able to draft and to do a comprehensive public participation period is not the truth. And that's why civil society did lodge a bill long before the time. But this bill is not getting legitimacy because I know that civil societies, and you might have seen in the press that there's more than 77 civil organizations comprising of civil leaders, religious leaders, and business that are now standing together to oppose this bill, saying we did not participate in this bill, we did not have enough time. And I know from our experience of international electoral reforms, if you haven't got legitimacy of the civil society to endorse a bill, it hasn't got credibility. And as a result, whatever happens in 2024, unless you've got a bill that civil society taps into, it's not going to get credibility, and we're really facing a crisis.
So I don't know if I would imagine you were one of those 77, civil societies who then lobbied some political parties, particularly not to vote for this bill. I mean, the EFF, of course, coming out in support of this, hence they were supporting it and voted for it, saying, of course, that some of the concerns that you are raising are neither here nor there. In fact, I just want to quote one of the things that they do say in their statement, saying that the argument that it's not fair for independent candidates to forfeit additional votes does not hold ground, because if independent candidates wanted, in fact, to gain additional seats if voted by a higher number of voters than is required, they have an option to register as a political party. So what's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, the big thing is it's really very strange, because you're 100% correct. Of course, we lobbied with the political parties. But the interesting thing is, a day before, the EFF voted against the bill because they did not believe that it fulfilled all the constitutional criteria. But in Parliament, they played a very, very dangerous game by attacking civil society and saying that civil society is objecting to this bill because they are funded by international conglomerates like the Oppenheimers and the Soros foundations and things, which really is extremely damaging to our democracy, when there are a lot of civil societies, ourselves included, that have been working ardently the last 5 years to get a bill that is truly justifiable. Then the second thing is just regarding about what they're saying about the voting system. The truth about it is the voting system is unfair. And the Constitution says 1 seat will equal to 1 vote. It's not what comes out on this bill. And this bill is totally flawed in numerous aspects, which they are well adverse to, including the signatures, which most of the public know by now. To register a political party, you need 1,000 signatures. But if you want to be an independent candidate, you need 13,000 to 18,000 signatures. How can that be fair? And how can that be justifiable?
Then what do you say to those, for instance, who say that this bill will in some way help improve accountability, as now citizens will be able to hold those that are in power accountable, and politicians will now be able to call out, corruption because they were beholden to their parties and not their voters?
But let's make it very clear. Definitely our positioning is that this isn't, you can never totally have a system that will totally make it more accountable. And that's not our plight. However, we all know as citizens that our full comprehension of how this bill should have looked like is constituencies. And there is no doubt that if we follow the Van Zyl-Slabbert report, where what we are mustering, there's 300 constituencies. And if you can have a individual that represents his constituency, he's definitely going to be more aligned and more in touch with his voters, because the viewers will know who of you know who your parliamentarian is, who is responsible and accountable to you. And when it's accountability, it's not about corruption. It's about serving you and helping you in your local areas, because the problems that are there in Gauteng, in KwaZulu-Natal, are completely different to the Western Cape. So who is your direct contact? And even the Structures Act of government talks about 3-tier governments, where you've got a national parliamentarian, a provincial parliamentarian, and a local parliamentarian. And that's the system that we are promoting, 3 tiers of government, that there is more direct. And when we say accountability, it's more direct communication and I want to say responsibility, but whatever I'm trying to say is that you will be able to look after the needs of your direct community.
Dr. Lewis, as we wrap our conversation, so now the National Assembly, has passed the Electoral Amendment Bill. What are the next steps then for yourselves and other civil organizations?
Well, I mean, there's 2 options, and I'm going to just put it in the in the way we prefer. Well, our first option is going to the National Council of Provinces, and we've reached out to Parliament, the Minister, so many times that we are seeking either a electoral lekgotla or a mediation. And I'm very pleased to see that the IFP is also talking about sort of beefing up their NCOP representation to call for mediation, where we as civil society have definitely got an interim solution, whereby we know that we won't all get what we want. Government won't get what they want, and civil society won't get 100% what they want. But we're wanting government to know we have got an interim solution and working on an interim solution on the proviso and the caveat that it will only work for the 2024 election. and after 2024 that we go into a full participatory dialogue with civil society on hearing the voices of how can we get an electoral system that we are all satisfied with. The other more destructive road is obviously going to court. And that's destructive. We will lead the country into a constitutional crisis. And if we have to fight this in court, and I must say the Independent Candidates Association has already briefed council to draft papers to declare the act as non-valid, and also to apply for a reading in that the Constitutional Court will say how the 2024 elections must be run.
Certainly something to keep tabs on. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Dr. Michael Lewis is the chairperson, of course, of the Independent Candidate Association.